Okay, so I want to walk through the MarkEdit update. So I have updated MarkEdit to 7.7. It's up on the website now. I'm going to go ahead and walk through some installation and stuff because there's a few changes to the program. There's general stuff that's been done, but there are a couple changes that you'll see when you do the installation. So I'm going to do this inside of, so it's the normal MarkEdit website. I'm going to do this inside of the Windows sandbox just for testing. So you'll see that I've updated the links, Windows builds, I've updated the information. So the first thing, so MarkEdit's been shifted to .NET 8. So that's the long-term support, .NET 8. You'll notice it here. I see I've got a thing here I need to update. .NET 8, so that's the new long-term support. So that'll run through November, I believe it's 2026. So like normal, there is the user-only build and then the consolidated build. I'm going to install the consolidated build because I prefer that one when I'm working because I work with COM stuff, but you can use either. These are pointing to, you can see the links that show up, so they've been updated. I've also updated the symlink, which points for older builds that point to 7.5. For pulling down updates, those will now redirect to 7.7 for download. So I'm going to go ahead and click on this button and go ahead and download the install. So the first thing you're going to see is that you may get this message here, and it'll eventually go away where it says it isn't a commonly downloaded application. So what happened? So I have had a certificate through a certificate authority for the last 7 years. It expired this year. The group that makes it available was super unresponsive, and it ended up expiring, and I haven't been able to replace it. So I'm using a different certificate authority. They have a different process for individuals, not organizations. So they have what's called an open source developer certificate, which I use for my open source projects, but also can be used for individual projects. So that's what's happening. What that means is that the tool that Microsoft uses to identify applications as being common or commonly downloaded hasn't got the new certificate yet. So I went ahead and submitted it to Microsoft for their smart cards. They can review it. Hopefully this will eventually go away. If you see this, you just end up having to select, keep, and then you'll see that there's the certificate information, and then keep anyway. And now you've got the file, and you should be able to just install it. So I'm going to go ahead and install it. So since this is the mixed install, it's going to download the prerequisites with the application. Remember, the user install is compiled to work with Windows 11 or Windows 64-bit. So all of the components that are a part of it in the .NET framework are a part of it. So you don't actually have to download the .NET framework or any tools with that, except for if you want the access to the web browser that's built into MarkEdit, and this is noted in the install. I will just point this out really quick. In the user only, the part that doesn't get installed is this WebKit runtime. And so if you are using the version here that's the user install, you'll want to download the WebKit runtime if you want to still access the browser stuff. So I'm going to go through this because I'm going to use the browser stuff. So typical installation, accept, blah, 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 all this stuff here, let it go through and start the install. So it's going to go ahead and take care of that here for a second. It's going to take it a minute because it has to download a bunch of stuff. While it's downloading, let's talk about what's changed. So I've put a note here. So specifically what's changed in MarkEdit. So 7. So there are a couple things. So new certificate. There are control flow options in the task window. I'll show that really quickly. It's .NET 8. There's a vPath that's created. It's on the website for folks that need it. There's been an update to the Koha plugin, though I will admit I have not gotten to test it fully. So if you use the Koha plugin, feel free to use it. I'll show you what that looks like, and then I'm going to be testing it today and this week. Plugin restructure architecture, I will show you what I mean, because I'm moving some things out of the application that are low use and moving them into plugins. And that's also going to help because I'm working on a plugin for integration with locally hosted AI components for doing kind of automated cataloging for digitized materials. So I'm going to make that a plugin so that'll show up in that space. I'm going to remind folks, so there's log files, autosave files, stuff like that. They're created in MarcEdit. Sometimes they get a little bloated. I've updated the cleanup routines to help make sure that's less of an issue. There's some bug fixes that have gone in. Some accessibility stuff that came with the vPat to make sure that all of the user interaction components and all of the labeling include the tagging for accessibility for screen readers. I had some folks who I'm not an expert in that. I had some folks that worked with me on that. And then I'm going to give you a quick reminder of backup options because I've had some folks who've worked with the tool and like in the task list found like may make a change and sometimes the groups get wonky or something like that. There's a way to easily back out of those changes. I'm going to show you where you'd find those if you need to go back and get backups, because MarcEdit keeps 10 days worth of good backups of the application, assuming that they're turned on. So I'll show you where you'll find those. So the program is about finished. So let's go ahead and it's been done. So just like normal, this first run, I haven't installed MarcEdit, so you're going to get the wizard, so 7.7. That's Mabel. She's our new helper agent. I'm not going to do anything. I'm just going to tell it use the default settings. And so we have MarcEdit. So I'm going to go ahead and quickly download a record just so I can show you kind of the stuff. So Z39 50 client, find a server. So this is the MarcEdit browser. So this uses a component. So if you want to use this, and you're installing the user only, you're going to make sure that the WebKit is installed. So Library of Congress, download the database. Search, download the record. So we got a record now. We can go ahead and just let's set it up. So I don't believe that'll happen every time. I'm going to have to check and see why that happened. Because it wasn't in previous builds. I will confirm that before But you may find it has to, if it does it, it'll be on the first run only. I'm not quite sure why it's having to do this. I doubt it'll have to do it if you're upgrading, but this is a new install and it's in the sandbox. So I will check and see why that was doing that. So let's make sure that was a one-time thing. Yeah, and I'll take a look at that and see if we can avoid that. So execute, edit. So it's there. If you are working with this, let's see here. I didn't MarcEdit. So all that stuff is there. All right, so let's look at what kind of stuff has changed. So inside the task manager, tools, manage tasks, new task. So we have our task editor here. I'm not gonna really create one. I will just add an action. just put fun of it. This won't do anything. I'm just gonna, because I want to show you. All right, so in MarkEdit's always had these script actions. There are new controller actions. So there's an if flow. So this will allow you to perform a task based on the content in the file. There's a YouTube video that walks through a little bit more how this works, but you can basically say that if something is present or if something isn't present, and you can build these as regular expressions. So MarkEdit will do a process of the record. It will perform a assessment if that record determines that it's it's either true or false based on the criteria that you put in place. Then the program will run the tasks or the actions that are inside of that grouping element. All right, so that's that. The other thing to show you is if you're a Koha user, integration, new, Koha. There's this new option here, say use OAuth. So Koha, I believe it's version 24, but maybe it's 23. I can't remember which version. They changed the way that the authentication works. So it's no longer strictly just a username and password attached to a session. The way that the Koha process works now is it is a secure session that also has a token that's attached with it. So the way that the authentication works is you make an anonymous request to get a session token, that then a session variable that goes with the cookie. That cookie is passed back to Koha for post events. In addition to that cookie, there's a token that's created that's based on a second request using your username and a password authentication. That token's used for all post processes. For get processes, we use the cookie only. You don't push the token as part of the header. So if you've checked use OAuth, MarkEdit will assume that you're using that newer connection process. I've tested the authentication and the cookie and all that stuff, so all that works. I've yet to test the end-to-end process, but Bywaters has been great. They set up an instance for me, a sandbox, so I'm going to be testing that. But I wanted to post the update because I know some folks have needed to get the .NET 8 updated. But I expect that I'll be doing the testing, and if there's any changes that need to be made, I'll be posting them in a day or so. So that's been changed. What's the other notes here? So the VPAT, I'll point that out. That's on the website, so you'll find it on the downloads page, the Koha update, the plugin restructure. So one of the things that used to be part of MarkEdit was an XML editor. So rather than deal, and you would have found it in this list, it's no longer there. Rather than, what I'm going to be doing is I'm going to be assessing parts of the program because I'm looking at redoing the interface so that when users install, they can pick either like you're a student, in which case the program will create an interface that's more basic. It'll probably be more large image based. That's going to be more for folks who are doing specific things that are built around folks that maybe are doing more digital work, in which case it might pull in other content, and then folks that want to see all of the stuff that's in the application. So I've been pulling some stuff that's more common out. So inside the plugin manager, you'll see, for example, there's the XML editor that's there. So these are the ones that are built into the application, save, and so they show up now inside the plugin list. And so they're there, you can use them. They're still part of the application. They're just being kind of shunted out so that I can track kind of how they're being used. It also means that they're not part of the core application code, which means that I can thin it down a little bit, which is nice. It makes it a little easier to work with because the program's obviously been worked on for about 22 years. It's big, it's bulky, there's a lot of code. I'm trying to clean it up a little bit to make it a little easier to work with. Additionally, there's still Ask Mabel. So this is the part for being able to find how to do stuff. We've still got quick links, first record, starting C3950, blah, blah, blah. You can find where things are, like inserting linked data, where can I find more about, asking questions on the listserv. So those kind of things are all in this piece. Again, you have to have if you install the mixed in, just install, it'll install the the pieces around the runtime for you. If you don't, then you'll need to install those yourself. So that stuff is there. Let's see what else. There's some cleanup that's happened in terms of around log files and stuff, but just also to remind folks, so MarkEdit creates backups of things. So when you first run MarkEdit, there is a settings backups page. So this is a daily backup. When you run the program, it keeps 10 of these daily backups. So if, for example, you're doing something with MarkEdit and the configurations have gotten wonky, or let's say you created tasks and you created task groups, and inside those task groups here that you've got, for some reason, you made a change and the tool had an issue with it, you can go back to your last daily backup by just going back to here, opening these files, and you'll see that they've been zipped. You can just grab the file that you need to update, drop it back into the main part of the application, and you're back where you were at the beginning of the day. So the tool tries to do that for you. Again, inside there's things like the log files, so MarkEdit keeps track of logs that you run. There's a cleanup routine, so it cleans up logs every 3 days or when logs get to a certain size. There's also an autosave routine if you enable that. When you're working in the editor, every 5 minutes it saves the file. So that way, if, for example, the program crashes, then that save file is there and you can recover it. The tool is, again, going through and every 3 days deleting those files, or if the files get over a certain size, we'll keep those files for a day and then remove them, but you can always go into the application here and clean them. And now that as I'm thinking about it, I will probably put quickly an option inside here where you can clear that, because there's already one for clearing temporary files. I will add one to clear other things, like your local log file and stuff like that. So that's the tool. It's been updated. It's good to go. You can also, I've updated clear that. I've also updated the Linux build. So there is a zip file where the MarkEdit's been compiled for a 64-bit version of Linux. All of the dependencies are part of that application. So there is no reason to download .NET or Mono or anything like that. It's all part of the tool. This is just the command line. If you want to run MarkEdit in the graphical interface, you have to download wine and run wine. You can see wget https / download the file. Oh, just a second. I already downloaded these. Let me remove this real quick. Okay. Unzip it. There's the folder. You can change the folder name if you want. The old folder name was just MarkEdit Linux. I went ahead and added an extension just so that you know that it's changed. You gotta mod the executable. There we go. Runs command line tool. Everything inside the command line tool that you can run. No other installations needed. You just download the zip. I'll probably look at creating a bin file to clean up some of that stuff. I've had one in the past for Linux to make it a little easier to work with. But at this point, that is how this sets up to work. I just wanted to make sure I got it out for people. So I'm going to go ahead and post that. It's all live now. I will be spending a little bit of time cleaning up. Since this is a change in the .NET build, I would recommend folks within your environment test it before you go with it. So have them test it as a clean install, test it in a update, but it's there.